Alrighty then, you're here. I am Tom. Let's write some code. Boop. And... okay, that's good. Thought I couldn't hear anything through my headphones then. That's not a good way to start the stream. So... let's get this all booted up. Now, last week we found there was a severe lack of performance. Well, we always knew that, but last week we hit against the point where it was just not going to help, or we couldn't put it off anymore. And we played around with a few things and nothing seemed to work. So today, what we can do is a virtual DOM. And I'm just going to turn the gain down from my microphone because it seems to be peaking a bit. That seems better. Now, a accidentally closed down OBS. It is not a good time to start. It's not a good way to start the stream, is it? I am just all over the place. Right, let's get the browser back again. And let's get the code back again. There we go. And okay, that should be good. Yeah, so a virtual DOM is basically a set of objects that you use in place of the actual HTML document object model. And the idea is you can make lots of changes to these, and then you just make one change to the HTML, and that means that the browser only has to re-render for that one change instead of every change that led up to it. So for example, in our case, every single frame we change the animation of a lemming, and there's like 10 on the screen at once at the moment. We might change whether a block is filled or it's air, if we place a block or remove a block. And we change whether the exit animation is flickering or not. And so all in all, that might be, say, up to, at the moment with 10 lemmings on the screen, it could be 15 updates. Also, we've got to change the cursor position. We've got to maybe change some label text. And the timer changes. So all of that's happening. And that happens 30 times a second. So if you have 15 updates happening 30 times a second, then you actually have like the browser repainting itself 450, I think. Yeah, 450 times every second, which means each of those the entire frame render from the time that you start calculating what needs to change. Well, in fact, not just the render, the entire loop from start of loop to changing all the states of everything to collecting everything for render to sending it to HTML and then finally rendering it. All of that would have to happen in 2 seconds per item. And it's not happening. Whereas if we only had to do one render, then we save a lot of time and energy and CPU, and we get a lot more time to do the behind the scenes things because we're not spending so much time pushing things into HTML. So there is 2 ways I could do the virtual DOM. I was playing around a bit last night. Number 1 is I can dedicate an entire web worker to it, and I can probably use a DOM parsing library like JSDOM, and I can just keep a set of objects and then turn those objects into HTML that gets sent into the browser. The other way of doing it is that I could create HTML strings, like a huge long HTML string of every object that we want, which is basically what we're doing. And then we send that up from WebAssembly to the browser once a frame, and hopefully that takes very little time to actually insert into the DOM. And I think that's the one I'm going to start with because it means I can basically reuse most of what I have. But there is some downsides to it because at the moment I'm not re-rendering every single block. So I'll have to start doing that. Unless I can find a way to splice certain things out of the... Well, actually, yeah, I guess. So let's create a folder here called vdom for virtual DOM. And a new file in it will be... What shall we call it? Elements. So here I think if we have items is going to be a map, and it's going to have strings as the keys and the values. And then we can have add item, so this will take ID string, content string, and return void. And then we can have, of course, remove item. Which just removes or deletes the key, the ID from the items. Actually, let's call this set item because it will be used to either add or update, so set is much more appropriate. Export. So add, remove, reset, and compile. I think we're going to have to do this longhand. So I'm just checking my frame rate a second because that's all the way down at 17, but 17 to 20, but Twitch seems happy. But let's just let's hit pause on this and see if the frames go up. And instantly up to 30. Firefox is not my friend when it comes to streaming. I'm so tempted to just make a well, the thing is, I have the OBS preview, but I'd really like to see the Twitch preview as well. But can't have everything. Compile items, so we can't use delegates really for anything, I don't think. So let's write it up longhand anyway. So we are going to take the nodes out of our items list. The nodes will each be a HTML element string. And we are just going to do basic loop, and for each one we're going to add it on. So we have all of that, and then in our loop we need to scroll down to all the way down to here, and I think we can get rid of most of this, I think. So let's comment that out and fix all of the errors that come because of it. We want to keep relative item ID. But we are going to give everything an ID. Needs ID is when we are re-rendering something. Okay, yep, that's good. So, render relative element. Well, basically, everything is going to be a relative element now. So, this we'll just call set item. Remove map tiles is going to remove item. Yeah, so we have our map tiles and our background to contend with. So these are all going to get a third parameter. Item set. Which set of items do we add them into? And then items will be a nested map. So here we want to actually add I guess string isn't best here. We want an enum actually, but enums and maps don't mix very well. So what I will do instead is the old school trick. And just export a load of consts. So we have relative, map, and background. and this is going to default to the constant. So if the item set that they've passed in exists, we are going to get the item set and set the ID. And we can copy that pattern for the rest of the functions. So here we want the sets are the values. Are we going to re-render everything? Let's start off re-rendering everything, and if that gets too intensive, then we can step it back and try and re-render just specific things. That this can actually be a const. What is nodes here? There we go. Missed off the values. Okay. So here, instead of map tiles, we will do set item element ID, element HTML, item set map. And this doesn't actually set anything, so oh, interesting. The relative item ID is increasing every time we render a relative element. So let's do this the messier but also cleaner way. because there is now 3 things that have to happen if it needs an ID. So we will just set some defaults ahead of time. This is a problem because that's going to be blank sometimes. So at what points does it not need the ID? So render box around block. I'm trying to work out any instance where having an ID would be a bad thing. Maybe I'm clearing the relative elements every time so it doesn't matter what its ID is. But let's see, so that's the function declared, that's false, that's true. Oh no, yeah, that one's false. Render background to screen. Okay, well, everything's getting an ID anyway. This even returns the ID. All of them return the ID. I'm hoping nothing actually uses them. Okay, nothing does use them. But let's get rid of this. And then it turns out we don't need to clean that up anyway. Yeah, the only time we wouldn't want it to have an ID is if it's going into something which already has an ID. So but no, render relative element just puts it straight onto the screen. Or did. Remove map tile is fine, render map tile is fine, but this one needs to be item set map. Render background to screen. Needs to be item set background. Okay, render to screen. So we've got relative map background. I guess maybe we need one more, which is like, I don't even know what gets rendered to the screen. Apparently nothing. Let's remove it and see if anything complains. So clear screen. We want clear item, is that what we called it? Reset items. So relative, background and map. But I will check where we are calling this. So we clear it when we add a layer if we're told to clear it. And we are clearing it when the meta screen renders a level. So this is at the start of every render loop, which is probably when we want to. We don't want to clear everything though. So here we don't want to clear the map. I don't know if we want to clear anything at all. Let's comment this out. And add layer to screen. It's only called once. So I think this can all be, if we say that all of these lemmings are going to be added as a relative element, then we can just remove them when we need to. Yeah. So it's just here. When does removed get called? Update explosion. Does my lemming have an ID? Okay, I think this is the point where I need to start making notes. Lemmings are added directly to a temporary screen which is cleared between every frame. We need to track the ID of every lemming and remove it before every frame. We need to render lemmings as relative items. So in lemming.ts, track the element ID here. Remove item when the lemming is removed there. Okay, so let's make a actual function. So I guess it's not dead. It might be saved, might it? So remove from game. It's nicer than dead as well, isn't it? So if it's removed, then continue. This is a level. Then it updates it. Then it handles if it's exited. Then it handles if it's removed, and that's fine. And that's just rendering. Yeah. So get rendered text array will just return a string. Render text array to screen. Renders a relative item, a relative element, which returns the element ID. So I think label dimensions might have to be okay, so this returns a rect. So we're going to have a interface for rendered text array, and it's going to have dimensions for as a rect, and it's going to have ID as a string. Okay, that should do it. So far, we just need to clear. In fact, we don't need to clear anything yet. So in level, lemming drop position, and element ID needs to be public. So before we do any of that, now it might be the very fast time it's there, so what I'm going to do in each of these functions is I'm going to make sure that the ID is actually set before I do anything with it. But there we go, that's level, so we no longer need to add the layer to the screen here, because it's all relative items now and they can be added and removed at will. That's better. Right, and ban. There we go. Okay, bot dealt with. Now, where were we? So that's the Lemmings sorted out. So, clear screen. Oh yeah, add layer to screen is unused in level and unused in loop. Perfect. Where is clear screen used? Nowhere. Okay, so I do need to clear the screen down between levels. Do I? Yeah, so between levels, I don't need the background, I don't need the map, I don't need any of the relative items. So load level, clear screen. And then we definitely don't need it here because every element should be keeping track of its own state. In fact, I can just get rid of an export and an import. And replace it with one other import. In fact, many imports. So now we just have render complete, which is exported even though it's only ever used in the loop. So output was, well, we don't need the output suffix, that's just closing off the layer, and since everything's a relative item now, that doesn't matter. So since we are doing everything at once, we don't need to do any of this. Oh yeah, we should be very careful about the order we do this in. So we don't actually want to iterate through. We want a new function for file set items. Or compile item set, I guess. That's going to be returning a string. So if the item set doesn't exist, or let's do this as a separate if. If nodes, this needs to be dot values, I guess. Dot length 0. Okay, I was just checking. I hadn't done any triple equals. So, if nodes is 0, we want to return an empty string as well. Otherwise, we start off with a div, we add in each relative node, close the div, and we return the string. And so for this specific thing, we want to render the background layer. And then the map, and then the relative stuff. Easy as pie. And now we need to jump back into our WebAssembly. I guess this is just the render message for now. We can probably remove background and map, but I don't want to do that until I know that this is fast enough. Post message output. So in index, game area.innerHTML equals e.data. That should just kind of work. So just render. Did render complete do anything else that I'm missing now? So render background, remove elements, render map, render output. No, it did nothing else, so it can just go. So render UI label. Guessing before we render the label, we want to remove it if it's already there. So in UI label, we are going to give this an public element ID string and then here we set the ID again. Now, do you think if I close my eyes there will be no rendering bugs? Or compile errors, I should say. I don't think that's how it works, is it? No, that's not how it works. Thought we had source map support. I think we did. Maybe? 3 new dependencies. Apparently we did not have it. Maybe we removed it last time we finished debugging. And this was even less useful. Now it's telling me that it's part of the webpack. Webpack. CLI. Compile, of course. Yeah. Okay, let's see how we're supposed to use this. Let's just close everything down for now. Actually, we've done that bit, so we can get rid of it. So here, let's try that. Nope, still pointing me to a Webpack. But 1999. So node modules, assembly script. We're looking for SGD. Portable index 199. Okay, so it's got this Webpack thing in, but it is actually giving us the right line number, which is function assertion ever. Nope, assert. So yeah, we knew that some assertion failed. So src compiler am I getting that right? Assembly script. So src should be alongside std, but it's not. Lib. I know I found compiler here somewhere before. Is it another? Compiler index. CLI ASC 822. That's not helpful. So that calls assembly script.compile. lib loader, nope, rtrace, nope, compat we have, index we have, but apparently no compiler. Nope, I'm looking through the folder for any mention of compiler. Well, there's a lot of them, but they're all in here we go. Import options from assembly script src compiler. But there is no src folder. Let's jump onto the web. So here we do have an src folder, which means it's probably just been excluded from the build. Okay, so where is the file we need? Src compiler here. So we are looking for line 6891. Come on, don't tell me there's not line 6891 when I can clearly see there's 90,000 lines or 9,000 lines. Guess that bit isn't searchable. Six eight nine one. Obviously a slightly different version. So let's do let's reload assembly script or install the latest version and then try and compile again. And now 6921, that's better. Finalize virtual stub. So yeah, finalize virtual stub. Instance.prototype.overloads. Oh, did I remove something that it's expecting? Okay, let's look through. Everything we removed, all of the exports. So we got rid of render to screen. That's not used anywhere. We got rid of render complete, which isn't used anywhere. Got rid of clear screen. And add layer to screen. Yeah, these ones are exported to JavaScript. But let's just go into WebAssembly Runner. So index show loading. Okay, so these ones should be fine. That one's there. Log. Key press listener, message response. So loop. Remove element. Let's just comment these out, so because if they're never used, they're not included in the compile. So let's comment those out, and let's comment these out. We'll try that again. Nope. 6921 character 30. Okay, so render we've got, on event loop complete, we have got and we cool. Oh, did I not save that? No, the same thing. Imports. Haven't touched the imports file. Okay, so all of that should be fine. So So let's look at so we need key up, which we have. Load level from string. Which we have. Update mouse coordinates. Register mouse click, which we have. Set screen dimensions. Set character dimensions. Get screen width. Get screen height. Start. And trigger event loop. Hello. I'm afraid I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your screen name, but welcome. We are currently trying to work out why the code isn't compiling, and the error message, as you can probably see, is not all that useful. I'm looking at the source code of the compiler here, and apparently we are declaring something which isn't being used, and I don't know what, and I don't know where to find it. So, finalized virtual stub is apparently called on line 540 here. So, what is this function doing? Oh, it's just the full compile module. So this is setting up the virtual lookup tables. Let's have a look for the word virtual anywhere in No. So I'm not explicitly declaring something as virtual. I am trying to learn a language called WebAssembly, which is like JavaScript except lower level. But I'm not actually writing WebAssembly, I'm writing TypeScript, which is turned into WebAssembly. And the thing that turns it into WebAssembly is this huge file here, which is created by someone else, and sometimes I hit up against it in ways that I'm not quite sure how to get around. So let's just have a look. Let's search this entire website for virtual. No. I am not logged in this browser, which means I can't search. Interface. Oh, it's the interface. It doesn't like interfaces. I forgot that. All we need to do is turn this into a class, and that might well solve it. Okay. And we're done. Yeah, so assembly script is still in development, and sometimes something I know from TypeScript isn't implemented into the compiler. But hopefully now we can refresh this. And maybe not. Okay, so now we are on to testing the actual changes I made, which I'm not quite sure where to start, but let's have a go. So number one thing we can do is look at my new compile function and just have a little see as to which items are being created. So we are going to log here, item set does not exist. And here we're going to log item set has no items. So hopefully if I get this working, you will be able to see the Lemmings game. So the console. Map has no items. Relative has no items. Background has no items. Okay, so nothing has items. So let's have a look at the title screen. Oh, I wonder if I'm just getting a bit of a race condition here. So, because I'm loading the level, but the title screen's already been constructed, and now that should be okay because it has been constructed, but I don't think it's rendered yet. So we'll log here that we're rendering the map, and then we can log here that we're resetting the items. So yeah, it resets the items before it renders the map, so that should be fine. So let's look at what actually gets rendered. Render map tile. Yeah, so we set the ID and the HTML. So we'll log here that we are setting the item ID and what map we're setting it to, or what item set. I've got a logic bug. So we want the length to be greater than 0. That's why nothing was happening. And here we go. So yeah, I should probably set the speed back up to 30 frames a second. And while I'm at it, I need to remove the cursor before I re-render it. Render relative item. Okay. So it doesn't return info, it returns ID. That's fine. So here we can set the cursor ID, and before we create the cursor we want to always remove it. And hopefully this is now a lot smoother. And it is not smoother, but at least the cursor is better. Oh yeah, I'm logging a lot. Let's not do that. Where did I put those logs in? So don't need this one. Don't think I added any here. Don't need that one. And I don't need any of these. Okay. Let's see if we can... Is it going to load? Yes, it is. Okay. And it's still chugging. Okay, so let's start with the caster up here, wait for it to catch up, then move it down here. I think maybe re-rendering everything is taking its toll a bit. So let's do console.time. Just see how long it's actually taking each frame to render. See now, that's good. It's taking... so it's like really inconsistent. Like anything under 33 milliseconds is fine. But we've got 39, 61, 157 and loads of variation there. Okay, so let's see what happens if we don't request the animation frame and we just render it straight off. Much better. Okay. But that's not really reflected in the performance we're getting. So is it just taking ages to compile all of the items? Let's go back into our element class. So we get the UTC timestamp in milliseconds here. And then we can do end minus start to get how many milliseconds it actually took to compile all of that together. And I don't want console.log, I just want log. Yeah, this might be our problem. It's taking increasing amounts of time to render each frame. Which is odd. This bit should be fairly consistent, but it's just going up and up and up and up. Oh, I know why it is. I might not be clearing the labels when I render the controls, so there's just more and more and more stuff there. So meta screen, render controls, and maybe I'm not clearing the map either. Actually, yeah, that should be handling itself. I think I set that up right, but render controls. So let's, in the render, oh no, I am actually removing it. So I think something is being added to one of these three and it's getting bigger and bigger all the time. Let's log the size of these so that we actually know which one we have to keep an eye on. So we've got background, we want map, and relative. So, nothing in the background, that's expected. Map is staying steady at 236, but relative items is going up and up and up and up. Okay. So, let's just get this function handling the removing. Actually, it can't do that because it regenerates the ID. So let's just make a note of everything that we need to search for. Vendor map tile is fine. Vendor background is fine. So it's literally just this one function we need to look at. Panel rendering. That might be it. Okay. That removes it. That's the editor. So I need to make a note to move the block. For re-adding. And this one. That gets removed. That gets removed. Okay, so it is the panel. So if we add that remove in there, yeesh, this is chugging. Let's close that window for now. That still seems to be going up. Because I'm not actually setting it. that's better. Let's get rid of the console logs. Yeah, because those are 20 odd milliseconds. That's just barely acceptable, depending on how long it actually takes to dump the stuff into the screen. That's still not quite what I'd like it to be, but let's start a level and see what's... Yeah, see, the level is a lot less responsive because there's more going on. Let's change the frame rate. Let's set it down to, say, 15. Ah, see, now 15 FPS, that's way smoother. Unintuitive as it may be. And then in the actual level, 15 FPS is even worse. The thing is, most of this only needs to be rendered once a second, or however long the time, however fast we run the level, because there is a fast forward mode. It's really only the cursor position that needs to be updated more than that, and maybe some of the labels. But then if we get animations in, we might want to run those at faster speed. So I'm going to do an experiment here. Let's get rid of the map display and see if that makes a difference. Yes, it absolutely does. So the problem is, yeah. If we want to remove only part of the map that's been updated, then we need to do individual DOM updates. I think I need to do a bit more reading on virtual DOMs and where the performance increase comes from, because it might be that I can do several different DOM updates one after the other and it will be fine because JavaScript doesn't then re-render the page until that piece of code is finished executing. I'm not sure. But I think for now we have sort of proved the concept. And we can hopefully build on this tomorrow. So if you want to see more of this, then I stream Friday, Saturday and Sunday 9 till 11. Hit follow and notifications if you want to be told exactly when I go live. I also have a Discord link in my profile if you want to come along and have a chat and see some of the other stuff that's going on. But thank you very much for watching, and until next time, have a very nice day.